I need to tell you something about Libra and love that changes everything you think you know about soulmate connections. And I need to tell you this right now because we are living through a Venus retrograde cycle that only happens once every 18 months. And this particular alignment is activating the deepest karmic relationship patterns for every Libra on this planet. This is not just another compatibility discussion. What I'm about to share with you is the result of tracking thousands of Libra relationships across decades of astrological practice. And the pattern is so precise, so undeniable, that once you see it, you cannot unsee it. You might think you already know about Libra compatibility. You've probably read that Libras get along with everyone, that they're the diplomats of the zodiac, that any sign can work if there's enough balance and harmony. And while there's surfaced truth to that, it completely misses the deeper reality. Because here's what most astrology content won't tell you. Libra doesn't just want compatibility. Libra's soul is searching for something far more specific, far more rare, and far more transformative than simple harmony. Have you noticed that Libras often end up in relationships that look perfect from the outside but feel hollow on the inside? Have you watched a Libra friend cycle through partners who check all the boxes yet somehow miss the mark? Or if you are a Libra, have you felt that exhausting pattern of attracting people who appreciate your grace, your fairness, your ability to see all sides, but who somehow never truly see you? That bone-deep loneliness that can exist even in the middle of a relationship. That's not random. That's not bad luck. That's your soul telling you that you've been looking in the wrong direction. Let me be extremely clear about what's happening energetically. Libra is ruled by Venus. Yes. But not the Venus of surface beauty and pleasant conversation. Libra carries the frequency of Venus as the cosmic scales, as the force that seeks to balance the unbearable tension between self and other, between independence and union, between the individual soul and the merged soul. This is not a light assignment. This is one of the most challenging energetic mandates in the entire zodiac. And because of this, Libra's perfect soulmate is not the person who makes life easy. It's the person who makes the impossible balance possible. Does this resonate with you? Because if you're feeling a tightness in your chest right now, if something in your solar plexus just contracted or expanded, your body is confirming what your mind might still be resisting. Here's the foundational truth that unlocks everything. Libra's soulmate must be able to hold paradox. Not just tolerate it, not just accept it, but actively hold it, dance with it, create with it. Because Libra lives in perpetual paradox. They are the sign of partnership who desperately needs autonomy. They are the sign of harmony who is constantly navigating conflict. They are the sign of indecision who sees with crystal clarity. They are the sign of surface grace who carries profound depth. Any partner who cannot hold these contradictions without trying to resolve them, fix them, or choose one side over the other will eventually suffocate the Libra soul. This is why so many Libra relationships fail in a specific way. The partner falls in love with one aspect of Libra, usually the charming, agreeable, harmonious aspect, and then feels betrayed or confused when the other aspects emerge. The sharp intellect, the stubborn core, the need for space, the unexpected intensity. And rather than recognizing these as essential parts of the whole, the partner tries to get back to the version they first met. This creates a devastating dynamic where Libra starts performing their own personality, editing themselves, becoming a curated version designed to maintain peace. And that's when the soul exhaustion sets in. You've felt this, haven't you? That specific tiredness that comes not from doing too much, but from being too little of yourself. Now let's talk about the cosmic mechanics of why certain signs can hold this paradox and others cannot. This is where we move from mysticism into energetic logic. Every zodiac sign operates on a specific frequency, and compatibility is not about whether two frequencies are similar. It's about whether they can create a stable harmonic when combined. Think of it like music. Two notes don't have to be the same to sound beautiful together. But they do have to be in a relationship where their vibrations enhance rather than cancel each other out. Libra operates on an air frequency, which means their primary mode of processing reality is through the mental realm, through ideas, through the space between things rather than the things themselves. This is crucial. Libra doesn't fall in love with a person as a fixed entity. Libra falls in love with the relationship itself, with the dynamic space that gets created between two people, with the conversation that never ends, with the mirror that reflects back new versions of themselves. This is why Libra's perfect soulmate cannot be someone who is energetically static or complete unto themselves. The soulmate must be someone who is also interested in the space between. Someone who understands that relationship is not a noun but a verb, not a destination but an ongoing creation. This immediately eliminates certain signs from the soulmate category, not because they're incompatible in a general sense, but because they're operating from a fundamentally different premise about what love is supposed to be. Earth signs, for example, approach relationship as a structure to build, a foundation to establish, a tangible reality to create. This can work beautifully for certain kinds of partnerships, but it rarely creates that soulmate frequency for Libra because the Earth sign will keep trying to solidify what Libra needs to keep fluid. The Earth sign experiences Libra's need for ongoing negotiation and recreation as instability, while Libra experiences the Earth sign's need for fixed structure as suffocation. Water signs present a different challenge. Water signs approach relationship through emotional fusion, through feeling, through the dissolution of boundaries. And while Libra can be deeply moved by this, can even be temporarily swept away by it, there's a fundamental mismatch in how they process intimacy. Libra needs air, needs space, needs the ability to step back and think about the feeling rather than just be consumed by it. Water signs often interpret this need for mental space as emotional distance or lack of depth, which creates a painful dynamic where the water sign feels abandoned and the Libra feels drowned. Are you starting to see the pattern? Are you starting to understand why so many of your past relationships followed a similar trajectory, even with completely different people? This brings us to the signs that can actually hold the Libra frequency in its fullness. And there are three that stand out with such clarity that the pattern becomes undeniable. But before I name them, I want you to understand that this is not about sun signs alone. This is about energetic signature. You might be in a relationship with someone whose sun sign is not one of these three, but if you look at their Venus placement, their moon, their rising sign, their 7th house, you will almost certainly find a strong presence of one of these three energies. Because the cosmos is precise, but it's also flexible in how it delivers the frequency you need. The first sign that holds Libra's golden ticket to soulmate connection is Gemini, and I can already hear some of you thinking, but that's too obvious. They're both air signs. Of course they get along. But this is not about getting along. This is about something far more profound. Gemini is the only sign that can match Libra's need for perpetual mental stimulation without trying to arrive at a conclusion. Gemini understands that the conversation is the point, that the exploration is the destination, that you can hold to opposing truths simultaneously and find that exhilarating rather than exhausting. Here's what happens when Libra meets their Gemini soulmate. They finally stop performing. Because Gemini doesn't need them to be consistent. Gemini doesn't need them to choose a side. Gemini doesn't need them to be the same person they were yesterday. Gemini is fascinated by the multiplicity, by the contradictions, by the way Libra can argue one position brilliantly and then turn around and argue the opposite with equal conviction. Where other signs see this as flakiness or lack of integrity, Gemini sees it as intellectual honesty, as the willingness to hold complexity. But here's the deeper magic. Gemini gives Libra permission to be selfish. This might sound strange because we think of Libra as the sign of partnership, of considering the other, of balance. But that's exactly why they need a partner who can say, stop thinking about what I need. Stop trying to balance the scales. Just tell me what you want right now in this moment without editing it. Gemini's natural self-focus, which can be problematic with other signs, becomes medicine for Libra. It creates a space where Libra can practice wanting without guilt, choosing without endless deliberation, being without performing. I've watched this pairing over and over, and there's a specific moment that always happens. It's usually a few months in, sometimes longer. The Libra will say something raw, something unfiltered, something that contradicts what they said before, and they'll brace for the reaction. They'll prepare to explain, to justify, to smooth it over. And the Gemini will just light up, will get more interested, will say, "Tell me more about that. How did you get from there to here? What changed?" And in that moment, something in the Libra's nervous system relaxes in a way it maybe never has before. Does this sound like something you've been searching for? That specific quality of being met in your complexity rather than despite it? The second sign that carries this soulmate frequency for Libra is Aquarius. And this is where we move from mental compatibility into something that touches the realm of destiny itself. Because while Gemini gives Libra permission to be inconsistent, Aquarius gives Libra permission to be revolutionary. And this is critical. Because here's what most people don't understand about Libra. Beneath that diplomatic exterior, beneath that desire for harmony and balance, there is a radical soul. Libra is a cardinal sign, which means it initiates, it creates, it disrupts. But because Libra's disruption happens through the realm of relationship and social dynamics rather than through obvious rebellion, it often goes unrecognized. Aquarius sees it immediately. Aquarius recognizes that Libra's insistence on fairness is not about being nice. It's about dismantling unjust power structures. That Libra's ability to see all sides is not weakness. It's a form of intellectual warfare against dogma and absolutism. That Libra's charm is not manipulation. It's a strategic tool for creating the social conditions where real change becomes possible. When Libra meets their Aquarius soulmate, they finally have a partner who understands that their quest for balance is not about maintaining the status quo. It's about creating a new equilibrium that has never existed before. I need you to really feel into this because it explains so much about why Libra relationships often fail in a specific way. Most partners fall in love with Libra's grace and then are shocked when Libra suddenly draws a hard line. When Libra's sense of justice kicks in and they become immovable. When the diplomat becomes the warrior. This seems like a contradiction to partners who don't understand the deeper architecture of Libra's soul. But Aquarius doesn't just understand it. Aquarius celebrates it. Aquarius knows that true balance requires the willingness to upset false harmony. That real peace requires the courage to disrupt toxic peace. Here's what the Libra-Aquarius soulmate connection looks like in practice. They become partners in reimagining what relationship can be. Neither of them is interested in following the script that society hands them. Neither of them wants the traditional markers of commitment if those markers feel like cages. But rather than this creating instability, it creates a relationship that is uniquely designed for who they actually are rather than who they're supposed to be. They might not get married, or they might get married in a way that completely redefines what marriage means. They might not live together, or they might live together in a configuration that makes other people uncomfortable. They might not be monogamous, or they might be monogamous but in a way that includes deep intimacy with others that doesn't threaten the primary bond. What matters is not the form. It's the fact that they're creating the form together based on what actually serves their connection rather than what they've been told connection should look like. And this is where Aquarius brings something that no other sign can bring to Libra. The courage to be weird. Because Libra, for all their ability to see beyond convention, often struggles with the fear of social rejection. They want to break the rules. But they also want to be liked. They want to create new paradigms. But they also want approval. This creates an internal tension that can be paralyzing. Aquarius dissolves this tension not by convincing Libra that approval doesn't matter, but by showing Libra that there's a different kind of approval available. The approval of the future rather than the past. The approval of the people who are also trying to create something new rather than the people who are invested in maintaining what already exists. When Libra is with their Aquarius soulmate, They stop trying to get permission from the old world and start building the new world. And this is when Libra's trooper comes online. I've seen this happen with a Libra client who spent years in relationships where she constantly felt like she was too much and not enough at the same time. Too opinionated but not decisive enough. Too social but not intimate enough. Too idealistic but not practical enough. Every partner had a different complaint. But the underlying message was always the same. You need to be more consistent. More predictable. More normal. And then she met an Aquarius who said, I don't want you to be normal. I want you to be impossible. I want you to contain multitudes. I want you to change your mind. I want you to want things that don't make sense. And for the first time in her life, she felt like she could breathe at full capacity. Have you experienced this? Have you been in relationships where you felt like you were constantly translating yourself? Constantly explaining yourself? Constantly defending the fact that you contain contradictions? That exhaustion you feel is not because you're difficult. It's because you've been trying to fit an expansive soul into a container that was never designed for expansion. Now, the third sign in this soulmate trinity is going to surprise some of you, and it's going to make perfect sense to others. It's Aries, and I know what you're thinking. Aries is fire. Aries is impulsive. Aries is the opposite of Libra's careful deliberation. How could that possibly be a soulmate match? But this is where we need to understand the deeper esoteric principle at work. Libra and Aries sit opposite each other on the zodiac wheel, which means they are polarity partners. And polarity is not the same as opposition. Polarity is the recognition that you need your opposite to become whole. That your opposite carries the medicine you lack. That your opposite is not your enemy but your completion. Here's what Aries brings to Libra that no other sign can bring. The gift of immediate action. Libra can see 1,000 possibilities. Can weigh every option with exquisite precision. Can understand all the implications and consequences. But this gift becomes a curse when it leads to paralysis. When the ability to see all sides means never choosing a side. When the quest for the perfect decision means never making any decision. Aries cuts through this with the sword of pure instinct. Aries doesn't need all the information. Aries doesn't need to consider every angle. Aries feels the impulse and moves, and deals with the consequences later. When Libra meets their Aries soulmate, something alchemical happens. Aries gives Libra permission to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to choose wrong and survive it. And this is revolutionary for Libra because so much of Libra's indecision comes from the terror of making the wrong choice, of disrupting the balance, of causing harm through action. Aries shows Libra that inaction also causes harm. That perfect balance is often just another word for stagnation. That sometimes you have to tip the scales dramatically in one direction to find out what's real. But here's what makes this a true soulmate connection rather than just an interesting dynamic. Libra gives Aries something equally essential. Libra gives Aries the gift of consideration, of pause, of thinking about impact before acting. Aries in isolation can be destructive, can burn through relationships and opportunities because they're so focused on the immediate impulse that they don't see the larger pattern. Libra teaches Aries that speed is not the same as effectiveness. That sometimes the most powerful action is the one you don't take. That true strength includes the ability to hold back when holding back serves the greater good. I want you to really understand what's happening energetically in this pairing because it's profound. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. The pure expression of I am, of self-assertion, of the individual will. Libra is the seventh sign. The pure expression of we are, of relationship, of the space between individuals. When these two come together, they create a complete circuit. Aries learns that the self is not diminished by considering the other, and Libra learns that the relationship is not threatened by asserting the self. This is the dance of individuation within union, of maintaining sovereignty while creating intimacy, of being fully yourself and fully merged at the same time. In practice, what this looks like is a relationship of constant negotiation, but negotiation as a form of play rather than conflict. The Aries will push, will initiate, will say let's do this right now. And the Libra will pause. Will consider. Will say, but what about this other factor? And rather than this creating frustration, it creates a rhythm. The Aries learns to trust that Libra's pause is not resistance. It's refinement. And the Libra learns to trust that Aries' push is not aggression. It's activation. They find a pace that neither could find alone, fast enough to actually move forward, slow enough to move in the right direction. I worked with a Libra man who described his Aries partner as his personal trainer for life. He said, "She doesn't let me hide in analysis paralysis. She doesn't let me use my ability to see all sides as an excuse to avoid choosing sides. She doesn't let me perform balance when what's actually needed is decisive action. But she also trusts me to be the one who sees the blind spots, who catches the consequences she didn't consider, who makes sure that our speed doesn't turn into recklessness. We're like a high-performance vehicle where she's the engine and I'm the steering system. Neither works without the other." Does this resonate with something you've been feeling? This sense that you need a partner who can match your intensity, but in a completely different way, who can challenge you without diminishing you, who can push you forward while respecting your need to consider the path. Now, here's what I need you to understand about all three of these soulmate signs. Whether it's Gemini, Aquarius, or Aries, the connection will not be easy. This is not about finding someone who makes life comfortable. This is about finding someone who makes your soul's evolution possible. These relationships will push you, will challenge you, will require you to grow in ways that feel uncomfortable and sometimes even painful. But the difference between this kind of challenge and the soul-draining challenge of an incompatible relationship is this. With your soulmate sign, the challenge makes you more yourself. With an incompatible sign, the challenge requires you to be less yourself. Can you feel the difference? In past relationships, did the difficulties make you contract, make you smaller, make you edit and perform and hide? Or did they make you expand, make you braver, make you more willing to show up in your full complexity? This is the litmus test. This is how you know whether you're in a growth challenge or an incompatibility challenge. And here's something crucial that I need to address because I know some of you are thinking it right now. What if I'm a Libra and I'm with someone who isn't one of these three signs? Does that mean my relationship is doomed? Does that mean I'll never find that soulmate connection? And the answer is nuanced. So stay with me. Remember what I said earlier. We're not just talking about sun signs. We're talking about energetic signature. Your partner might be a Taurus sun. But if they have Gemini rising and Venus in Aquarius, they're carrying the frequency you need. Or your partner might be a Cancer sun. But if they have Mars in Aries and Moon in Gemini, again, the frequency is there. This is why I always tell people, don't break up with someone just because their sun sign isn't on the ideal list. But do get curious about the full astrological picture. Do look at the synastry, the composite chart, the ways your energies actually interact beyond the surface level. And most importantly, do pay attention to how you feel in the relationship. Are you expanding or contracting? Are you becoming more yourself or less? Are you being challenged to grow or challenged to shrink? Your body knows the answer even when your mind is still trying to figure it out. There's another layer to this that we need to explore, and it's about timing. Because even when you find your soulmate sign, even when the energetic frequency is perfect, the relationship can still fail if the timing is wrong. And this is where so many Libras get caught in a painful loop. They meet someone who feels like the one. Someone who checks all the boxes we've been talking about. Someone who can hold their paradox and match their complexity. But one or both of them isn't ready. One is still healing from past wounds. One is still learning lessons they need to learn alone. One is geographically unavailable or emotionally unavailable or spiritually unavailable. And the Libra, because they can see the potential so clearly, because they can envision exactly how beautiful this could be, tries to force the timing, tries to convince, to wait, to accommodate, to make it work through sheer force of will and strategic patience. And here's what I need you to hear. You cannot strategize your way into correct timing. You cannot think your way into readiness, yours or theirs. This is one of the hardest lessons for Libra, because your superpower is seeing how things could be balanced, how pieces could fit together, how problems could be solved if everyone would just be reasonable and consider all the factors. But soul timing operates on a different frequency than mental logic. Soul timing is about seasons, strains, about cycles, about the mysterious unfolding of readiness that cannot be rushed or negotiated. I've seen so many Libras exhaust themselves trying to make the right person work at the wrong time. And the tragedy is that this often destroys the very connection they're trying to preserve. Because when you're trying to force timing, you stop being yourself. You become the person you think you need to be to make it work. You become more accommodating, more patient, more understanding than is actually authentic for you. You override your own needs and boundaries because you're so focused on the potential. And slowly, imperceptibly, the relationship stops being about two whole people meeting in their truth and becomes about one person managing the situation to keep the other person engaged. Have you done this? Have you found yourself in a relationship where you were constantly calculating, constantly adjusting, constantly trying to be the right amount of present without being too much, the right amount of patient without being a doormat, the right amount of understanding without being a fool? That's not love. That's project management. And your soul knows the difference even when your mind is still trying to convince you that this is what partnership requires. So here's what correct timing looks like with your soulmate sign. It looks like ease. Not ease in the sense that there are no challenges or growth edges, but ease in the sense that you're not having to convince anyone to show up. Ease in the sense that the relationship is moving forward through mutual desire rather than through one person's strategic effort. Ease in the sense that when conflicts arise, both people are genuinely interested in resolution rather than one person doing all the emotional labor while the other person remains passively resistant. With Gemini, correct timing means both people are genuinely available for the level of mental intimacy and constant communication that this connection requires. Gemini can be flighty, can be distracted by the next shiny thing, can struggle with consistency. If you meet a Gemini who is still in their scattered phase, who hasn't yet learned how to channel their mental energy into sustained focus, the relationship will feel like you're constantly chasing, constantly trying to pin down someone who won't be pinned. But when you meet a Gemini who has matured into their capacity for depth within variety, who can be consistent in their inconsistency, who can commit to the conversation even as the content of the conversation constantly evolves, that's when the magic happens. With Aquarius, correct timing means both people have done enough individual work that they're not trying to use the relationship to fix their relationship with themselves. Aquarius can be emotionally detached, can intellectualize feelings, can use their vision of the future as a way to avoid being present in the now. If you meet an Aquarius who is still running from intimacy, who is still using their revolutionary ideals as a shield against vulnerability, the relationship will feel like you're in love with a hologram. You'll see the potential, you'll feel the connection, but you won't be able to actually touch it, to ground it, to make it real. But when you meet an Aquarius who has learned that true revolution includes the revolution of the heart, who can be both visionary and vulnerable, who can hold space for the future while being fully present in the current moment, that's when you've found your match. With Aries, correct timing means both people have developed enough self-awareness that the natural tension between Aries' impulse and Libra's deliberation becomes creative rather than destructive. Aries can be selfish, can be impatient, can bulldoze over other people's needs in their rush to get what they want. If you meet an Aries who hasn't yet learned that other people are not obstacles to their desires but essential parts of the journey, the relationship will feel like you're constantly being run over, constantly having to fight for your right to be considered, constantly exhausted from trying to slow down, someone who experiences your need for pause as an attack on their autonomy. But when you meet an Aries who has learned that true strength includes the ability to consider impact, who can be decisive without being domineering, who can lead without leaving you behind, that's when the polarity becomes powerful rather than painful. And here's the thing about timing that might bring you some peace if you're currently in the pain of wrong timing. If it's truly a soulmate connection, the timing will eventually align. Not because you forced it, not because you waited in suffering, but because both souls are on a trajectory toward readiness, and those trajectories will intersect when they're meant to. I've seen this happen over and over. Two people meet. The connection is undeniable, but one or both isn't ready. They separate, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. They do their individual work. They have other relationships that teach them what they need to learn. They grow into the version of themselves that can actually hold the connection they glimpsed. And then they come back together. And it's different. It's not the fantasy they were trying to force before. It's something more real, more grounded, more possible. But here's the crucial part. This only happens when both people actually do the work of becoming ready rather than just waiting for the other person to change. If you're a Libra who has met your soulmate sign but the timing is wrong, your job is not to wait. Your job is not to stay available just in case. Your job is to become so fully yourself, so completely whole, so deeply rooted in your own worth and clarity that when the timing does align, you're meeting as two sovereign beings rather than as two half people trying to complete each other. This brings us to the final piece of this puzzle. And it's the piece that determines whether you'll actually recognize your soulmate when they appear, or whether you'll miss them because you're still looking for the wrong thing. And that piece is this. You have to stop trying to find someone who completes you and start looking for someone who complements you. Do you understand the difference? Completion implies that you're incomplete, that you're lacking something essential, that you need another person to make you whole. Complement implies that you're already whole, but that another whole person can create something with you that neither of you could create alone. Libra, more than any other sign, struggles with this distinction because your entire energetic signature is about relationship, about the space between, about we rather than I. And this can create a subtle but devastating pattern where you define yourself through your relationships, where you don't quite know who you are when you're alone, where your sense of worth and identity is overly dependent on being chosen, being partnered, being in that state of union that feels like home. And when you're operating from this place, you will attract relationships that reinforce your incompleteness. You will attract partners who need you to need them, who are threatened by your wholeness, who keep you slightly off balance so that you stay dependent on the relationship for your sense of stability. Your soulmate sign, whether it's Gemini, Aquarius, will not do this. Your soulmate will actively push you toward your own wholeness, will celebrate your independence, will encourage you to have a life and identity that exists separate from the relationship. And if you're still in that pattern of defining yourself through partnership, this will feel threatening. It will feel like rejection. It will feel like they don't need you enough, don't prioritize you enough, don't make you central enough to their world. And you might actually push away your soulmate because they're not feeding the pattern you're used to, because they're offering you something healthier than what you've been conditioned to crave. I need you to really sit with this because it might be the most important thing I say in this entire conversation. If you are a Libra who keeps attracting relationships that feel intense and all-consuming, but ultimately leave you feeling empty, the problem is not that you haven't found the right person yet. The problem is that you're still looking for someone to complete you rather than someone to complement you. And until you shift that fundamental orientation, until you do the work of becoming whole on your own, you will keep missing or pushing away the very connections that could actually fulfill you. So what does that work look like? It looks like learning to make decisions on your own without needing to process every option with another person. It looks like developing opinions and preferences that are genuinely yours rather than carefully calibrated to maintain harmony with whoever you're with. It looks like spending time alone not as a punishment or a waiting period until the next relationship, but as essential practice of remembering who you are when no one else is in the room. It looks like building a life that is so full, so rich, so aligned with your values and desires that a partner would be an enhancement rather than a rescue. And here's what happens when you do this work. You stop being desperate. You stop settling. You stop trying to make mediocre connections work through sheer force of effort and accommodation. You start having standards that are based on how you actually feel in someone's presence rather than on how good the relationship looks on paper. You start trusting your body's wisdom. That tightness in your chest that says this isn't right even when your mind is listing all the reasons it should be. That expansion in your solar plexus that says yes even when the logical checklist isn't complete. When you're operating from wholeness, you can recognize your soulmate immediately because they won't feel like a missing piece clicking into place. They'll feel like a whole person meeting another whole person and discovering that together you can create something neither of you could create alone. With Gemini, it will feel like your mind finally has a true sparring partner, someone who can match your intellectual range and celebrate your contradictions. With Aquarius, it will feel like you've found your co-conspirator in reimagining what relationship can be, someone who shares your vision of a more authentic way of connecting. With Aries, it will feel like you've found your perfect counterbalance, someone whose decisive action complements your thoughtful consideration in a way that creates forward momentum without recklessness. But all of this requires that you stop abandoning yourself in relationships. Stop editing your truth to maintain peace. Stop performing a version of yourself that you think will be more lovable. Stop prioritizing harmony over honesty. Because here's the brutal truth. Every time you abandon yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you're training them to expect a version of you that isn't real. And then you resent them for not seeing the real you, for not appreciating your depth, for not understanding your complexity. But how could they? You never showed them. You showed them the curated version. The diplomatic version. The version that never rocks the boat or makes waves or demands too much. Your soulmate cannot fall in love with someone you're not willing to be. Your soulmate cannot hold space for complexity you're not willing to show. Your soulmate cannot complement your wholeness if you're still performing incompleteness. This is why the work of becoming whole is not separate from the work of finding your soulmate. It's the same work. Every moment you choose authenticity over accommodation. You're calling in the kind of connection that can handle your truth. Every moment you choose your own clarity over someone else's comfort. You're practicing the sovereignty that soulmate-level partnership requires. And yes, this means you might be alone for longer than feels comfortable. Yes, this means you might have to end relationships that look good but feel wrong. Yes, this means you might have to disappoint people. Might have to be seen as difficult or demanding or too much. But I promise you, the loneliness of being alone is nothing compared to the soul-crushing isolation of being with someone who can't actually see you, who doesn't want to see you, who needs you to stay small and simple and easy to understand. You were not born to be easy to understand. You were born to be a living paradox, a walking contradiction, a constant negotiation between opposing forces. You were born to hold the tension between self and other, between independence and intimacy, between the individual and the collective. This is not a flaw to be fixed. This is your sacred assignment, and your soulmate is the person who doesn't just tolerate this assignment but celebrates it, who sees your complexity as your greatest gift rather than your biggest problem. So here's what I want you to do right now. Whether you're currently in a relationship or single, whether you've met your sign or you're still searching, I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you will stop performing, that you will stop editing, that you will stop trying to be the version of Libra that you think will be most acceptable, most lovable, most likely to be chosen. I want you to commit to showing up in your full complexity, your contradictions, your indecision, your depth, your intensity, your need for both connection and space. And I want you to trust that the right person, your actual soulmate, will not be scared away by this. They will be magnetized by it. Because here's the final truth, the one that changes everything. Your soulmate is not looking for the easy version of you. Your soulmate is looking for the real version of you. And the real version of you is not simple, is not consistent, is not easy to pin down or predict or manage. The real version of you is vast and contradictory and constantly evolving. And somewhere out there, whether they're a Gemini who can match your mental complexity, an Aquarius who can hold your revolutionary vision, or an Aries who can balance your deliberation with decisive action. Someone is looking for exactly that. Someone is tired of simple. Someone is bored by consistency. Someone is ready for the challenge and the gift of loving someone who contains multitudes. That someone is your soulmate, and they're not looking for who you pretend to be. They're looking for who you actually are. So stop hiding. Stop performing. Stop waiting until you're more ready, more healed, more whole. You're ready